last stretch of the day for me, who is, it's now nearly midnight. I'm still in the spooky office. But the next person that I'm bringing on is Elisa Harca. And Elisa and I have been talking about what I call her the China decoder, because she's actually really somebody who can explain some of the trends that are happening in China to an audience that, sometimes, we haven't been able to be inside China for like the past 3 years. And things move so quickly there that we feel that it's really important that we actually are able to show you some of the expectations of the Chinese market, the Chinese consumer, especially the Gen Z Chinese consumer as well. And, the kinds of things that, we would never have been able to create at the speed in which they created behind the Great Firewall. So with that, Brooke, would you help
Hi,
us
everyone.
to bring up
I am
everything?
Elisa. Hi everyone, I am Elisa Harca and I am the co-founder of Red Ant Asia. We are a marketing agency based between Hong Kong and Shanghai, and I'm super excited to hopefully help you decode the rather complex China digital universe just a little bit. So before we jump inside the digital world of China, a little bit about us to give you context. So we're Red Ant Asia, we're about 10 years old, and our purpose is to inspire imaginations about today's China. Our mission is to authentically connect next generation brands to China's generation now. We live, breathe, eat, sleep the Chinese culture, and we are a pioneering, creator-led, commerce-centered marketing agency. And we have the privilege of working with some of the top retail brands from all over the world, covering beauty, fashion, and lifestyle. So that's enough about us. And let me help you try to understand a little bit about that modern, elusive Chinese consumer. So we kind of describe them as individualists. They're very, very different to their parents and their grandparents, and China is very different to 30 years ago. This group of millennials and Gen Z have had the privilege of growing up in a significantly digitally savvy world and are much wealthier than their parents and grandparents were. So they had the luxury of wanting to be rule breaking, walking their own path, really doing the best they can to self-express. And this is really key to understanding what they're looking for when it comes to a brand retail perspective. They're open-minded and seekers, especially the Gen Z, who are the post-95 age group and make up approximately 20% of the population. And actually, they currently have about 15% of the household income. So they're very important in terms of where the dollar goes in China. Now, these Gen Zers really value brands that go beyond just product and marketing and really have a true brand story that helps them fuel what they call their self-expression. They've departed from the naked materialism and they're looking to commit to more deeper values that go beyond just the expected. For them, personalization is a right, not a privilege. So China's generation now, in summary, they're educated and global. They're pursuing a lifestyle, something their parents couldn't do. They're connected yet isolated. So remember, this generation still is generally from the one-child policy. So many of them don't have siblings. So they often find those connections online. So they have this love-hate relationship with the digital world. So the new face of China is very modern. And as I was saying, earlier, they really have to look at brands and want to look at brands in a very different way. When we look 30 years ago, their parents and grandparents would be looking at brands and just kind of accepting them at face value, almost worshipping them in a way. This isn't the same for the young generation in China now. They want brands that appeal to both the modern Chinese vibe as well as the traditional Chinese aesthetic. And this trend is called the Guoqiao trend. And brands from the West are also trying to tap into this nostalgia culture as well. Authentic cultural appreciation. So this is a hot topic, and brands, international brands especially, have found really, really lovely ways of doing it authentically. A couple of examples that are worth looking at that have done it with true artisan spirit are Hermes, who collaborated with Nerian Hu, the architects, and worked with puppet theatres that came from villages outside of Chengdu. The Cartier and Palace Museum. Cartier and Palace Museum together have produced a beautiful exhibition where products were on display that were a mixture of jewelry that was inspired by Chinese culture as well as European traditions too. Both really fabulous examples of cultural appreciation rather than appropriation. So now we jump inside the China digital landscape. China has absolutely leapfrogged analog to digital. So mobile payments are ubiquitous. Cash is kind of almost non-existent in China anymore. If you can't pay with WeChat Pay, people think you're quite crazy. App-based transport, we have Mobike, Didi, you know, the Ubers of the world. Actually, Didi acquired Uber. And we have an ecosystem of convenience from food shopping to any kind of delivery that you're looking for. And the concept of new retail has really been about integrating online and offline. So Hema, that comes from the Alibaba group, Starbucks has been incredibly innovative in this space, and really ensuring that that massive country is fully connected through the online ecosystem. Channel overload. Now, this is a really scary slide and kind of shows you how mind-boggling the China digital ecosystem is. Probably for every one online platform we have in the West, they have 3 to 4. But don't worry, we're not going to go inside all of them. Today, we're just going to focus on the ones that are most useful for you from a marketing perspective. So let's start with the Chinese shopping journey. So if we look at the inspiration, evaluation, purchase, and post-purchase funnel, the key channels that we care about are Weibo, the microblogging platform, Douyin, the video platform that is the owner of TikTok. We have Red, which is a user discovery platform, WeChat, and we have Tmall, the e-commerce platform, the dominant e-commerce platform in China, that go through various stages of that customer's shopping journey. Now, to give you a little bit more insight into the 4 marketing channels, we're leaving aside Tmall because that could take a whole nother session. I'll give you a quick insight to what they are and how you can best refer to them. So the top 4 that you need to think about when you're doing marketing in China are Weibo, WeChat, Red, and Douyin. So Weibo, as I just mentioned, is very much a microblogging platform. So most like Twitter meets Facebook meets Instagram. It's a one-to-many channel. It's kind of the OG of channels, so a little bit old-fashioned, you could say these days. But when brands are working with celebrities, it's a really important channel, especially for driving back to e-commerce channels such as Tmall. WeChat is the super app of all apps. It's a closed ecosystem, a one-to-one platform. It has its own e-commerce functionality within the platform. It's great for CRM, and it's great for kind of providing in-depth stories about brands. Red, if you're in the beauty or fashion space, is a channel that you should be on. Our team calls it the girls' hack to their daily life. It's female-focused channel, and it's most like Pinterest meets Instagram meets Polyvore, essentially. And it's a UGC platform, so a lot of the content that is profiled is actually from the user base rather than from brands. And then last but not least, Douyin, the Chinese TikTok, or vice versa. TikTok is the Western Douyin. It is the video-based platform that has had huge growth, especially this year, and becoming a lot more mainstream. And it's also got its e-commerce elements enabled inside. That's one of the key differences you'll find about Chinese social networks, is that they are very much social commerce networks, not just social networks. So they are ahead of the West from that side of things. So I'd like to give you some examples of how to best use these channels and give you some relevant smart Chinese marketing cases. So let's start with WeChat, the super app of all apps. Now, I'll assume that many of you won't have seen how you can best use WeChat. So here's an example from Jimmy Choo. We like to say that it's like a brand's website within an app. And it's a great place to house your brand content that can be shown in multi-formats, most like a magazine, but a very digitized magazine with videos, sliding images, a lot of moving content, a lot of in-app functionality. And it's a great place to kind of house that brand content and really kind of go deep. It hasn't got an equivalent in the West. We can't say WhatsApp is anywhere near it. It's not. You really have to kind of jump inside and see, like on the left here, you can see down below, you've got navigation, which you can most akin to like having your website navigation. So for brands who perhaps don't have the luxury of translating a Chinese website or don't have the interest in doing it just yet, WeChat can kind of plug the gap. It can be your Chinese website. GIFs, music, animation. With China, everything is about movement. Still, static is boring. People hit the snooze button. You can, if you see a QR code, we'll send the presentation afterwards. You can scan it and have a look at the examples a bit more close up and center. Now, this one you definitely need to scan because I can't show it to you on the screen, but it's a fabulous example of WeChat at its best. So this is actually one long vertical image and is animated. And you can see how WeChat really goes beyond in terms of long form content. And this is actually from a Chinese cosmetic brand who worked with a creator to produce this. And it's a fabulously beautiful story of old Shanghai. You scroll down and down and down the article, and then when you get to the end, you find out that it is a collaboration with a brand. Very clever, very beautiful, and a great example of the creativity that can come within the WeChat channel. Here is another example from WeChat 2. This is now horizontal. You can see it's slightly animated and tapping into that nostalgia trend. It feels like an old Chinese painting, but it's actually talking about Alibaba and its shopping festivals. So it's from the old to the new, perfectly integrated and really exciting for that modern Chinese consumer. Now onto the metaverse. This is the 3D event. So all the buzz is about 3D, metaverse, digital, etc. And what we would say is that 2021 really was the first year of the metaverse in China. Perhaps it was the first year of the metaverse really in the rest of the world, but we saw China really kind of take the virtual world and integrate it more seamlessly into the real world. And we've seen this in 3 stages actually. So the first stage is the adoption of virtual influencers, and they're actually seen as the least risky option considering some uncertainties around other aspects of the metaverse in China. Second is the introduction of virtual products, which we call NFTs, or they're actually called NFT-powered digital collectibles now in mainland, and L'Oreal launched Reds of Worth NFT. Third is partnerships with the metaverse platform, so working with developers to create 3D virtual experiences, such as SK2, the cosmetic brand's shopping experience center called SK2 City. So virtual KOLs, the early wave, actually kind of came out of the creator space. And the voicer is what we call a WeMedia, so a WeChat magazine. And they created this virtual influencer called Poker a couple of years ago. And she was actually an intern inside their WeMedia magazine. Now we would say that the virtual KOLs have actually started to go mainstream in China. And this is a virtual KOL I'm sure you'll come across a lot now that I am introducing you to her. And her name is Ayayi. She is from a creator who launched her and did a lot of very interesting campaigns with brands such as Guerlain, LV, even Ambrosio. They developed the world's first digital yogurt together for EIE. But now Tmall and Alibaba have actually hired her as a digital employee, and she became the mastermind behind the Tmall Super Brand Day. So for brands now who want to work with IE, rather than going to the creators, they go and work with her for Tmall and Alibaba activations. So again, bringing the whole content, creator, and commerce into a 360 brand experience. So I mentioned the Super Brand Day and the Metaverse. So this was a great activation that took place for Alibaba and Tmall during their 618 festival this year. 7 brands participated in the show. So for example, Off-White, Makeup Forever, even Cornetto and Budweiser got involved. And virtual clothing made from VR and 3D was offered to designers to go beyond what physical fabrics could allow. And consumers who bought items from the brands in the show received a limited edition virtual costume for their digital collection. They also could turn the AR wear function on after receiving the collection and wear virtual clothing through the AR filter. And each digital garment was limited to 2,000 items. And I have a video for you to show you what this Tmall 618 live in the metaverse looked like. Pretty fun. So let me play it for you. So pretty cool activation coming from Tmall, the e-commerce multi-brand platform in China. So the other thing I want to introduce you to is from the same founders of IIE. She was featured in that video. I hope you spotted her. Is China's leading art toy, and he is called Robbie. He's this character sitting here in the middle. This is another example of how traditional and future are merging and integrating seamlessly in China. So it's a futuristic yet cultural heritage design. It's actually inspired by the Jade Rabbit from China's first lunar rover, and he's seen as a mystery fantasy turned into a collectible gift. I also have a little video for you so you can see Robbie in action, and brands collaborate with him to tap into his Gen Z community. And it's a phygital experience. So let me let the video do the talking.
Yeah.
So as you can see, that was a co-branded campaign with the NBA, and this content and the physical and digital Robbie will live across multiple platforms, some of the ones that I shared earlier, as well as others in China. So into gaming, as you can imagine, gaming increased a lot, especially during the Shanghai lockdown. It was a horrendous time for Shanghainese people living in Shanghai during that time. They were locked down for 70 days, couldn't leave their house at all. And then we saw the rise of gaming coming through that. And Balenciaga launched a very cool campaign that again tapped into this futuristic nostalgia trend, which was called the 520 Video Game Hall. And it was a virtual arcade game featuring pixel art and realistic soundscapes. So it was a mini 8-bit low pixel game, and it was available on the brand's WeChat channel until May 20th. Now, May 20th is a key shopping festival in Chinese. It sounds like I love you. So it's almost like the unofficial Valentine's Day. And the Balenciaga campaign was very clever to launch this limited time game, and people could look at the collection in the experience and in the game. And those who finished the game actually got to have a limited edition red pocket cover. A red pocket is something that you give out to people during Chinese New Year. It's like a kind of gifting thing, but it was digital. And this was also released in line with some photos and WeChat memes that people were free to download. So a really nice example of gaming being launched for a specific e-commerce moment, tapping into future and nostalgia trends. So as I mentioned at the beginning, social commerce is front and center. This is a little bit of an older example, but it's one of the best examples ever. So Becky Lee is one of the top influencers in China. We work with her a lot. And a few years ago, she worked with Mini Cooper. And via her Weibo channel, she sold 100 limited edition minis in just 4 minutes, and it totaled nearly 30 million renminbi. O2O, so phygital experiences. I think China is at the forefront of this. Before phygital was even a word, if I can say it even now, O2O was the buzzword in China marketing. And a great example of phygital coming to life, O2O, is Bulgari invited consumers in Shanghai to visit a wishing pool in Rome that was in Shanghai, and it was a mixture of real world and digital experiences. So when consumers got to the event, they could scan a QR code to take them to WeChat to play a digital game, and then they could send a virtual coin into the wishing pool. A really nice merger of the real and the virtual worlds. So China speed, it's the innovation mindset. It's being resourceful, ability to pivot, failing fast and moving on. It's a wild ride. It's very exciting. I've been in the market for over 10 years and it's never a dull moment. So hopefully you feel like you understand the Chinese digital landscape a little bit more. If you have any more questions, I am really happy to answer them anytime. You can see my information at the end of the deck, and look forward to hearing from you, and enjoy the rest of the show. Talk to you soon. Bye.
So one of the reasons why we actually bring up a lot of the China part is because, you know, we sit in Hong Kong here, and I think there's a really big part where we actually have to bridge what is the perception of actually what's happening in China, and also generationally what that perception actually is. It's very, very different because, you know, you cannot do anything at the speed in which like this market and this consumer market actually wants to hear from you. And we don't even think, I mean, if you think the next day shipping is fast, right? We're talking about next hour shipping in some of the cities in China. And albeit that COVID has actually tamped down that little bit, but in general, I think one of the things that we actually should know is that a lot of these things that are happening in different countries have a huge effect on the whole kind of the whole ecosystem. And you know, there's kind of these leapfrogs that actually happen both generationally and in each of these countries that actually makes us think about where we want to go to later. So with that, we are going to take a 10-minute break, and at 12:30 we've got actually something really interesting happening, which is how do we take all of that information that we've got today and all of the 3 things and all the things that we've talked about, like in Gen Z and all of the different generations, and how do we look at this in the metaverse? And to do that with us, we have last year's speaker, who was Danny Loftus. And you know, last year when I talked to Danny, the amazing thing was that she said to me, you know, we're at the start of this, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. And she schooled me. Like, she actually, I mean, firstly, it's quite amazing to be schooled by somebody who's like 20-something years your junior. You know, I could be her mom. But you know, she pretty much laid out the whole situation of what was going online. So I know it's been nearly 3 hours worth of programming. I leave you all to, you know, go get something to eat. As you can tell, I've raided the pantry in Alvanon, which I have to say is not very well stocked right now, because all I could find were Oreos and an orange. So we'll have to have a talk about that later. We need some better snacks. And keep the stream running, and we'll be back at 12:30 to have the next to welcome the next speaker. This is a masterclass, and you don't really want to miss that. Bye.